Hey everyone, it's me, John, and I know what you're saying. Hey, aren't we supposed to get a case cracked today? I was kind of on the fence about calling this episode a case cracked. However, I think there's a lot of lingering questions and things that still need to firm up in this case. However, we do have, at least we know where Toni Anderson most likely wound up. We have a fairly solid idea of some of the events that might have gotten her there. So I prefer to call this a Searchlight update, but know that we do have some pretty strong answers coming your way in this case. So with all that being said, let's just jump right in and get started. Of course, if you don't remember the Toni Anderson case, I will have a link in the description box below so you can watch that. But in short, this is a young woman who went missing in the middle of January just of this year. She was driving around at night, got pulled over by a police officer. She texted a friend about the fact that she had gotten pulled over, and then she seemed to disappear. We can now see, according to Kansas.com, in an article that was published, I believe this came out on Friday, maybe possibly Saturday, March 11th, 2017. Missing woman's car pulled from river, body inside. And when they first started reporting on this, that was basically as far as they would go. It was identified fairly quickly that it was a female body, but the car was certainly the same car that they were looking for that went missing with Toni. They pretty quickly updated some of these articles. Even this one looks like it's been updated. A body found inside a car pulled from the Missouri River alongside Platte Landing Park on Friday evening is that of a 20-year-old Wichita woman missing since January 15. And I did bring up a map. Once again, if you remember the original story, she worked at a place called Chrome. It is a gentleman's club. Supposedly she was a server there. She was talking about meeting up with some friends at a place called the Shady Lady when she got off at work. She got off at work about 4 a.m. from Chrome. However, it looks like, I don't know if she decided not to meet up with those friends, but she got pulled over around this gas station at Burlington Street, and she told the police officer she was running out of gas and she had made an improper lane change. He let her off with a warning, showed her where the gas station was, watched her pull into the gas station, and that was the last that he had seen of her. Now we see that her car actually wound up way up here in Platte Landing Park. I don't remember the exact specifics. I didn't have an address specifically on where she lived, but I don't believe that she lived this far north. So once again, a bit of a question in terms of why she wound up this far out here. And what's also worth noting here, it's going to become important as we review the information from her mother. If we zoom in on Platte Landing Park, you can see they have a parking lot that kind of kicks off of South Main Street here. And also off of that parking lot, they have it looks like a ramp to load boats into the Missouri River. So let's continue with a different article at kansascity.com. This one came out on March 12th, and the title puts it very clear: "No foul play suspected in death of Toni Anderson in Missouri River, police say." And here we're going to get a bit of insight from her mother in terms of what she thinks happened. Her mother, Liz Anderson of Wichita, told the Star on Sunday that police had confirmed the identity. Police have not officially released that information pending a medical examiner's report. Liz Anderson said the body was identified from clothing Toni Anderson was last seen wearing. Quote, "There is no foul play," Anderson said. "I'm so grateful for that." Liz Anderson said the most likely explanation is that her daughter became confused in the early morning and ended up at the boat ramp in the park. She had been upset after being stopped by a North Kansas City police officer for a minor traffic violation. Now, I just want to point out for that little piece of the story, I don't know why she would be upset necessarily about being pulled over. I mean, it seems like she got pulled over a lot. This article even mentioned she had several speeding tickets, but the officer actually let her off with just a warning. So I don't know. I don't know how much to believe that she would have really been all that upset from that interaction specifically. She might have been upset about other things going on. She might have been distracted thinking about something else. But I don't know that, trying to pull those events together is necessarily a good thing. But please understand, this is how the mind of a grieving mother is working with the information she's been giving and trying to put together a narrative that makes sense to her. Quote, "She got freaked out," Toni's mother said. "She got lost and she got confused or whatever. It was still dark. She was on the boat ramp and tried to back out. The ramp was icy and she slid into the river." The window of the 2012 Ford Focus was open and Toni Anderson's seatbelt was off when the vehicle was recovered. "She was fully clothed," Liz Anderson said. "It must have happened so quick. It was so cold. She must have instantly gone into shock. I could see how it could happen." Toni Anderson had been on the swim team in school and was an excellent swimmer, her mother said. So it's a little bit tough for me because if we're looking at this story at face value, it's kind of hard for me to believe that even if she did back into the river, how hard would it have been for her to get out of her car? That's saying that the window was down, her seatbelt was off. I mean, if you were at the point of having those things done, even if the car was completely submerged, you'd figure you were only seconds away from being outside of that car and trying to get up to the surface. So, but there is other reports that we're seeing from the police that there is no trauma to her body outside for one thing, which this article is going to mention in a moment. But there's clearly no sign that there was a struggle of any kind or something like that. What I'm also a little confused about is I've watched some footage of the recovery of the car, and at least the way they're recovering the car, it doesn't look like they're doing it from a boat landing. It looks like they're actually doing it off of a hill. And I don't know if the car might have moved with the river down a certain ways and they had to pull it up from that location. But I would figure if it was anywhere near the boat landing, that just the logistics of pulling it back towards the boat landing would have made more sense. I also had some question because in the footage I saw when the car was removed, it looked like the top of it was also damaged and the front windshield was completely gone. Now, according to a different article about the team that actually found the car, they seem to be pretty clear that the car was right side up when they found it. And we'll talk a bit more about that when we get to that article. So the thought that it could have driven from the boat landing right into the water and stayed right side up certainly seems to make some sense. I'm just confused as to why someone that was a swimmer in high school wouldn't have been able to get out of it. Now, granted, I'm sure that water was extremely cold. Even in the footage we're seeing just from this weekend, it looks like it's literally freezing out there. It is super, super cold. So it could be that the shock and hypothermia just overtook her before she could respond properly. But really, really, really tough situation. And I'm just happy that the family is already kind of recognizing that at least they don't have this additional nightmare of wondering who committed this crime against their daughter. And I am going to knock on wood because, of course, the medical examiner's information is not back yet. But at least from the outset of all the information that's coming out now, they don't have anything to worry about there being some murderer out there that's responsible for doing this. It does look like it was simply an accident. Her daughter's body showed no signs of trauma other than a bruised knee, which she surmised came from brushing against and knocking off a GPS device mounted below the dashboard. Of course, if you saw the episode, you remember we spoke about that GPS device at length. It looked like it pretty much shut off at some point. We were wondering, did she potentially shut it off because she didn't want to be tracked or something? I think her mom is making a decent conclusion here that in her struggle to get out of the car after she realized what happened, maybe she had knocked that device out. But we don't know the status of where that device was after they actually recovered her car. A celebration of life service will be held at a date to be announced at Risen Savior Lutheran Church in Wichita. And just to be clear, I know there's still some question, could this potentially be a different body? I think it's pretty much ruled out. Police have told her family that they should start preparing for funeral arrangements. We hear in this article her mom seems to believe they have confirmed that the clothing is a match for what she was wearing. I think the likelihood that it's someone else is extremely slim, but worth mentioning. That's why I just wanted to put it out there. We don't have a final confirmation of identity. We just have news articles that are kind of leaking information that seems to be going around through the family. But there's an article both with her father and her mother basically saying the same thing. So I don't think we're going to see that information change. Memorial for Toni Anderson appears at Platt Landing Park, where car was found. And this is an article basically about people that are going and leaving flowers. People that maybe didn't even necessarily know her, other students from another local university, but people that were just touched by her story and were hoping for a better outcome than what actually happened. Now, what I find really interesting just about the coverage of this case is we've read through a few articles now, and they really haven't mentioned who actually did the work of finding her. But luckily, there are a few other sources that are really focusing and reporting on that specifically. So let's jump to an article over at speedlux.com. Man who discovers Toni Anderson's car tells it could have been missed. Here you can see a picture of it. This is after the car has already been pulled over to at least the side of the river, and I believe that's why it's up on its side. Many are doubting why it took so long to discover the Kansas City woman's vehicle, even after KCPD verified they had already investigated the area. Dennis Waters and his wife Tammy are the husband-wife team that found Anderson's car. They operate a nonprofit which investigates for the missing. Quote, even when it was discovered, it was really hard to see, said Dennis Waters. He said knowing many factors, such as the murkiness of the water, the car would have been easy to miss. Quote, I'm going to say about half to 2/3 of the vehicle was already under sand, stated Waters. He could observe that the sand was already up over the front bumper and encroaching on the hood. So the way he's explaining that strongly leads me to believe that the car was actually upright in the bottom of the river when he located it, him and his wife. Now, what's really interesting about this story is that wasn't the only thing they found. They actually found an SUV that was also in the river and let authorities know about that. The police are saying that the SUV has no connection to Toni's case whatsoever, but they are taking both of those cars out. And there's actually a video clip down here you might want to check out. Of course, I'll have all the links in the description box below. But there's a clip of some of the recovery effort that's going on for the vehicle. And I just wanted to point out what an amazing thing it is for this husband and wife to do this. They operate purely on donations. They do not charge the family anything. And it seems pretty apparent they know what they're doing because they were able to find this. According to a different article I read, and I have to just put this out with a little bit of a caveat because I'm seeing a lot of information that's kind of conflicting around this story. In one article, it says that the husband contacted Toni's father when he saw the case was going cold. In another article, it's actually the husband's wife who says, no, Toni's father contacted us. There's just this information kind of crossover and confusion that's happening on this case a little bit. One of the stories I heard is that they were planning on only searching for 2 days, and they decided to put a third day into it, and that's when they made the discovery of Toni's car. I also saw some information that said they actually first caught sight of the car on Wednesday, told the authorities about it, but then the authorities didn't come out to try to retrieve the car until Friday. If you watch some news coverage of the authorities talking, they make it sound like that all happened within the same day. So once again, I'm not sure which is totally true there. But there is a simple truth in all this where you have this man and his wife trying to help families that are in distress and doing a pretty amazing job. So I did want to show you their website, teamwaterssonar.com. They have a donate now link there. And on behalf of myself, the show, and in particular my Patreon supporters, we are going to be making a donation to Team Waters so they can keep doing this fine work. And I would please ask that you consider doing the same. These are the type of people that really should be supported. Their donation page is very clear about other equipment upgrades they would like to get. Maybe we can help them do that. And outside of that, my heart goes out to Toni's family. I just can't imagine what they're facing. This weekend, in one way, must have been a nightmare for them, but in another, finally having some answers, hearing that it's not something where she might have been treated very badly before she ultimately died. There's certainly some silver lining in a very cloudy sky for them. And I just wish them all the best in terms of moving forward. And I can already see some comments from her mother and father where they're talking about just trying to appreciate the time that they had with her, trying to hold on to those happy memories. And I just want to wish them more luck in doing so. So that is it, Brain Scratchers. The end of your almost a case cracked, but definitely a Searchlight update. If anything significant changes in this case, I will let you guys know. We'll do another update. That's also part of the reason why I didn't want to shift it over into a different show, just in case there are further developments. I can just do another Searchlight update on it. But I hope all of you are having a nice week, keeping those families safe, and please come back and I'll see you here again on the Lord and Arts channel.